Well, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to SETI Live on this wonderful Monday afternoon. My name is Simon Steele. I'm the Deputy Director of the Carl Sagan Center here at the SETI Institute in Mountain View, California. And joining me today is Caitlin Ahrens, who's a geologist based at University of Maryland and NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, also in Maryland. Welcome, Caitlin.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
we're going to talk about the moon and going there again, but in new ways. So we'll start off. Just tell us a little bit about your role at UMD and NASA, and why is the moon exciting to you?
Thanks. Yes, I'm an assistant research scientist at University of Maryland. Hello from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, where we are currently encased in lots of snow and ice right now. But that's not going to stop science, right? That's not going to stop us from being excited about the moon. This is a very exciting time for a lot of lunar scientists. I myself am a trained planetary geologist, and I dabble around the solar system. But my favorite thing about the moon, though, is just how weird it is. There's weird geology. There's weird chemistry. There's ice at the polar regions of the moon, and how in the world did those get there? There's weird volcanoes on the moon. The moon had such a very vibrant volcanic period in its geologic history. So the moon is still very exciting. There's still plenty to send astronauts back to the moon. We want samples. We want sample return. And so, yeah, that's some exciting stuff happening here.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because we're also obviously so familiar with the moon. It was up there nice and bright last night, and and yet it's still this mysterious body in the universe that we really do need to find out more about. And the best way of doing that, like any scientists, to actually go there, and that's what we are planning to do. Talking about our own world, our own planet, do let us know when you're tuning in from. I see we've got somebody from England already. Welcome from Ohio. And let us know. And also, if you have any questions about the mission or about the moon in general, we're going to talk more about the geology of the moon a bit later. But I think we're going to start off talking about the Artemis mission. And where are we at the moment in the countdown? Caitlin.
Yes, so today has been a very exciting day, a very busy day. So today, if anybody has been tuning in to what Artemis II has been up to, we're rapidly approaching the first opportunity for launch. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a all systems go just yet. But today in particular was the wet dress rehearsal. So what that means is that the rocket has already been on the launch pad, looking pretty, ready to go. And what they would do is they'll take the lower stage, the core, and the upper stages, and they'll just time it, right? They'll time it with the different liquid stages, the different fuel pumps, make sure it can fill efficiently, if there's any leaks or anything. And you're essentially just kind of like, and time it, go, and see what happens. Now, unfortunately, we did actually run into a slight hiccup about an hour and a bit ago where the core stage actually had a minor leak. This is a similar leak we had with Artemis I, so nothing new for us. We understand what's the troubleshooting here. So currently fueling as of right now has been on pause until we understand more about this leak, though. So the astronauts right now are still going through their quarantine stage, which is very much what we do with our astronaut team, make sure that they're not going to show any symptoms or signs of sickness in the meantime. So you know what, I'm sure they're just anxious. I hope they're not bored, but I'm sure they are very anxious as far as like, okay, when are we going? Because if we don't make this particular window of opportunity for launch, that's okay. There are several windows, at least all the way out to April, as far as like different windows. So it's not as nail biting scary as like Mars. We have to wait months to years, at least with the moon. It's like, okay, gotta wait a few weeks. That's fine.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the what we mean by windows and where we're going. We'll have a look at a map in a minute. But if we can bring out an image of the spacecraft, you said there's a core leak. That doesn't sound great. So here we have the launch system on its. This is on the transporter, isn't it, or is this on the pad now?
Yeah, this is the beautiful SLS system kind of deal. So thankfully, I mean, just last night into this morning, we had the system go to start the fueling process, where the rocket just starts to kind of come inward, but not quite to the tippy top part. That's where we start to get a little bit of that core moment there. So the upper stage is more liquid oxygen. That middle part there is liquid hydrogen. So that's some stuff you don't want to leak. Right now, the leak has different thresholds, and we passed that threshold of like, nope, this isn't quite good. We need to like just pause it and see where things need to fix.
So this is oxygen hydrogen, which is generates a lot of power when you burn it together. It's definitely the side two boosters. Are they're solid fuel? Are they rather than liquid fuel?
I mean, most of it is, it's a combination of solid and liquid. We still have some nitrogen happening too. I think the nitrogen test happened earlier today into tomorrow, but right now all fueling has been on tiny pause right now just so we can get the situation assessed. But you know what? This is where just the live streams can either seem really boring to most, but some of us are like refreshing the page this entire afternoon as to like how did this fueling go? How did this go? Please tell us we're going back to the moon.
Well, a lot of people here tuning in as well from Ecuador, Norway, Oahu, and Hawaii. John O'Groats in Scotland, Chile, Big Bend, Oregon, and from Cyprus. So welcome everybody. Let's bring up the route map, if you like, of this mission. And you're talking about windows, launch windows. This is not a straight shot. It's bit windy here. We got a lot of orbits going on. Can you run through this journey for us?
Absolutely. And I love how we can compare this almost to Apollo 8 style, where it has the kind of classic figure 8. However, with Artemis II, what's going to happen though is instead of multiple loops around the moon like we did with Apollo 8, and think of it this way, Apollo 8 only got so close to the moon. It got really, really close to the moon, about 60 miles off the ground of an orbit. Very, very close. Whereas Artemis II is actually going to do an almost elliptical roundabout around the Earth a few times to get into a nice rhythm of a pattern. And then it's only going to slingshot once around the moon. It's not going to be as close as Apollo 8. It's going to be about 6,000 miles up high. But there's a reason for that. It's mainly because as Apollo 8 was like veering across the surface of the moon, like really up close and personal, you could practically sniff the craters. We're not getting that close, but also that helps our mapping. We're going to be seeing parts of the far side of the moon that have never been seen by human eyes before, because we're looking at it at a much wider angle view than Apollo 8. And that's going to be quite exciting to have not only human eyesight, but also human direction as to what gets photographed and how that can help with site planning. We could talk about that later. But in essence, too, thinking about it this way is that we need to perfect our orbit during this time because we're going to the south pole of the moon. We've never done that before. We've never had this kind of orbit with humans before. And so we really do need to figure out our timing and our angles and how this is all going to play out. And so this is truly a very grand scale rehearsal to get boots back on the ground on the moon.
So this is so in a sense, Apollo 8 was too close. You don't see the wood for the trees there, and now he's going to get a good view at the entire far side. So when you're saying we're going to take a look at the poles, does that there is one? It's not even an orbit, is it? We do it's really a an elliptical slingshot almost round the moon. Um, well, how will it pass over the moon? You're saying it's going to go to a polar
Nearly
motion,
polar.
nearly
Yeah.
polar. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
nearly polar. We're trying to aim for waning gibbous phase so that way we don't have to really contend with blinding ourselves with the sun. So for those of you listening out there, though, if you're wanting to know, like, if we're paying attention to moon phase, yes, you can't just go any old time and deal with it when you get there. Nope. So we try to deal at least with waning phase, waning gibbous, so that way there's still quite a bit of the moon illuminated, but also you get some nice shadow definition in there as well, kind of deal. So it's going to be really nice to get those photographs for sure.
Yeah. And what sort of equipment will they use? So going back to the scientific aspects of this, obviously there's a lot of different aspects, and we're going to talk about the human colonization of the solar system and what that means for SETI. But there is going to be a scientific aspect, and there's the geological aspect that we'll talk about a little bit more. But as far as this particular mission, we're doing one pass over the poles of the moon and then going home. What can you do scientifically with that?
So a major risk factor with space travel for everybody is radiation and what happens to the human body. And so there's only been truly a number of people, but a small section of people that have been in space and then stayed. So whether that's the ISS astronauts to the Apollo astronauts, but we need to be ready for a longer term. And so with that, you have the lunar environment, no atmosphere to bounce off solar radiation as much as our Earth atmosphere does. The worst you're going to get is a sunburn, right? I mean, on the moon, it's going to be much worse if you're not protected. And so what happens to the human body, even just on the molecular level of what happens to the blood and skin cells? And so that's going to be the exciting part. There's going to be two major branches for Artemis II, besides taking pretty pictures for us geologists. But there's going to be two main instruments called Archer and Avatar. You got to love acronyms. Archer is the Artemis.
Can you remember what it means?
Yeah, okay, I do. Go for it. I'm so proud of myself. Yes. So Archer is the Artemis research for crew health and readiness. So that's going to be wristbands of which all the astronauts are going to be equipped with. This is going to have anything from dosimeters, so how much radiation level are they receiving? It's almost going to be like a little mini blood pressure cuff for them as well. So kind of give us a very basic sense of the circulation and their pulse. At least during roundabout in space. And then Avatar is a virtual astronaut tissue analog response. And so Avatar is taking skin cells and I believe bits of each of the astronauts' blood on these little itty bitty cells, and they're going to be fully irradiated out around the moon and everything, brought back into the lab and see what happens there. Now, granted, this is still only going to be like a few days. It's not considered long term by any means, but it's still a much needed process to understand radiation and the human body. And Avatar and Archer combined, we're hoping that this can create almost personalized medical kits for astronauts going forward. Everybody's going to be responding differently. That makes sense. And so having very standard medical kits is one thing, though, but if a certain human type or blood type may need a certain medicine or procedure in space, we'll need to know that. And then there's going to be CubeSats. This is an international partnership. How exciting is that going to be? These CubeSats are going to really hone in on the radiation side. So Earth radiation, Earth-Moon system radiation, how well those bounce off of each other as well. At some point, it's going to increase and decrease as the spaceship is moving. So those CubeSats are going to be a lot of fun as well, in part of that radiation.
Yeah. Now, CubeSats are these small, self-contained, as they say, cube-shaped little satellites. Are they going to be launched at various points away from the main capsule?
I believe so, that they will be launched at different points, so that way they can catch and almost communicate in a nice international cooperation way. Is at what point do they want to look at, say, like the Van Allen belts around Earth to maybe something closer to the moon, and you almost get like a nice spectrum, a nice swath of different radiation levels. You know, are there certain levels that maybe a human space capsule shouldn't stay in this area for too long because maybe there's a radiation spike here versus over here. And so, yeah, this is going to be quite interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, because this, having the moon as a first step to Mars, which we're always talking about, the dynamics of going to Mars are relatively straightforward, is mostly Newtonian. It's the biology, isn't it, that's the issue, and you want to get that right on these little day trips, sort of weekend trips before you actually have a major expedition.
Absolutely. And so we're still learning about, just from even astronaut interactions in space and just very minimal what happens to the human body, at least from the International Space Station. But even sending up medical officers is just as rare as sending up a geologist. We've only, of all the Apollo astronauts, we've sent up one geologist, and so we're trying to send up, could we have more medical professionals in space going forward?
Yeah. You mentioned geology. Let's get on, because you want to talk about geology. And before, you were working on the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO, and we have a nice image of near side and far side moon taken by LRO. I can see you're very happy about seeing that. So talk us through the, obviously we've only got 10 minutes to talk about the geology of an entire planet here, but talk us through the highlights here and what we're interested in as far as the geology of this planet is.
Let me tell you, trying to narrow down the geology for the Artemis II crew, because yes, they will have a litany of cameras, and we've trained them very well on not just how to use the cameras, because that's important, but also we gave them very basic geology training, because we're not going to be able to really have much in the way of real time, take a picture of that, take a picture of that, take a picture of that. So if they understand the geology, even the basic lunar geology ahead of time, they can make the decisions of like, oh, cool, the geologists back home are going to really love this crater here. Let me take a picture of this. This looks like some really cool geology here. And so thankfully, the Artemis II astronauts, even if they're not landing on the moon, they still got geology training to make that decision better, and certainly more streamlined for us that actually want the pictures of the pretty craters and everything. So even just near side and far side. So like I said, with even just the far side, you can see a stark difference here of like the darker grays and the lighter grays here. And that's fascinating all in itself. What you're seeing with the dark patches on the near side here, that's where a lot of the really crazy volcanic era of the moon really came forth, bursted forth. All of that is crystallized lava. I mean, you have miles and miles and miles of just all sorts of weird lava glooping and crystallizing all over the moon. It's fantastic. And then on the far side of the moon, like I said, we're going to be seeing some areas on the far side of the moon that have never been seen by human eyes before. And so, yes, we've sent plenty of orbiters, like Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and so on. But to really get into those kind of details, while LRO and a whole armada of of other orbiters are actually going around the moon right now too. And how do we compare and how do we use this data? But now going to the south pole of the moon, this is where some of the really weird geology can come into play here. So why the south pole of the moon, though, is because there's some craters. I love using the phrase where the sun don't shine. These craters take it to a literal stance here, where they're so deep and so angled, is so steeply sloped that
let's have a look at.
yes.
Oh, got an image from the south polar region. Talk us through what we're seeing here.
Yeah, so this looks like a overlaid image between Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and the recent KPLO, which is the Korean lunar orbiter that had shadow cam. So shadow cam is a U.S. camera where it peered into some of these very, very dark areas here. So this is Shackleton crater. This is nearly smack dab at 90 degrees south.
Yeah, this is right at the bottom, isn't it? It's always like you drilled a hole to sort of spin the globe on its axis on this crater. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Now, what's really interesting or literally cool about these craters is that you can get as cold as Pluto with a lot of these craters. It's so fascinating that it's mostly water ice, and we have even ground-based radar observations and infrared telescopes that have confirmed water ice at the poles. But when you're as cold as Pluto, your chemistry gets really bizarre. And so you're having different, almost different ices happening here. So carbon dioxide ice, there could be a little bit of dash of methane here, a little bit of ammonia here, maybe some hydrogen sulfide here. And that's the weird part. We don't know the abundance of this yet. We don't know the physical state of this ice. Now, would we be going to Shackleton? Probably not. It's really, really steep, at least way too steep for human health and safety for now. Would it be a future robotic thing? Yeah, sure. Why not? But for human aspects, though, probably not near Shackleton right away. But we do want to actually sample some of this ice at some point, really to figure out what's the physical state of this. Is it as chunky as the ice cubes you get from your freezer at home? Or is it or if anybody likes their crushed ice from your home refrigerator instead of the bigger ice cubes? Or is it really tiny? More likely it's going to be itty bitty, really tiny. But we don't know how stable that is. We don't know how, if it's like very cemented and layered, is it really deep? Or is it just going to go poof as soon as you look at it?
Yeah. Now this is the Shackleton crater. Now this is a permanently shadowed crater or permanently shadowed region. And we're seeing this is a sort of a bit of a cheat here, because you say we've illuminated or, through an infrared camera, we're seeing the bottom of this crater, but normally it would just be darker than dark here, because we just don't get sunlight ever going into that crater.
Correct. And you know what? That's the fun part right now, too, is there are some very recent studies as to how dark is dark, how dark is dark to a rover versus how dark is dark to the human eyes. And there's some ongoing studies that have been really interesting as far as how dark is really dark with some of these craters. Is it going to be an issue for our future astronauts? And then there's some craters that may have a permanently shadowed region off to its side, and sunlight can hit the wall of the crater that may bounce itself. That illumination may bounce itself into the crater, in which case maybe that's a little bit lighter illumination. Is that considered safer? So we're still looking into that, and it's really quite interesting to see how people may figure that out with like the different incidence angles of the sun and how bright is the sun. The sun can't get up very, very high at the South Pole, so you're going to need enough sunlight. But how much is enough?
Yeah. We're going to turn over to. We've got some questions coming in from you all out there. So thank you for that. I'm going to start with a question about the orbits. This is from John Darwin. We talk about blackouts. We've all seen Apollo 13, and it goes around the far side of the moon, and we lose communication. Is this an issue with Artemis?
A little bit, but thankfully there will be some constant communication and watching from a little bit from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, that they'll keep an eye on it as well. And thankfully, we're not going to be staying too long at the far side of the moon. It's not going to be probably more than an hour or so, is my best guess, assuming everything goes well with the orbit.
Because there's a lot more up there these days than in the Apollo 8 days. I mean, as you say, you've got Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. So the idea then ultimately is you're going to have enough sort of stations and orbiters that you can actually bounce signals off of. So this idea of being sort of losing radio contact is going to end up being a thing of the past.
I mean, that's a hope. It's still going to be a bit of a challenge. Another good thing too is that because we're not close, very, very close to the moon, like Apollo 8, you're so much farther out.
Mm-hmm.
The moon itself blocking your view of the Earth is not going to be that long.
Yeah, nice. Cosmic Sunset, welcome. What is your favorite part of Artemis that is similar to Apollo, and what's your favorite part of Artemis that's different from Apollo?
Ooh, excellent question. And I love the name Cosmic Sunset. So let's see, favorite part of Artemis that's similar to Apollo. I think that would certainly be the community, the lunar community, bringing about all this lessons learned. You hear lessons learned almost so often, as to like, well, what did we learn from this? What did we do during the Apollo era? What did that technology look like? How did we archive or lack thereof? And so I think bringing the community, the lunar community, the planetary community, there's so many of us that it's become such an international draw and excitement of like, okay, we have lessons learned, what went right, what went wrong, kind of deal. So I think, that's essentially my favorite part is kind of bringing back those lessons learned, and kind of relearning a lot of maybe some things didn't get archived that well that now we're trying to bring back and go like, oh yeah, that's right, that's what we did. And then what's different from Apollo is certainly the technology and the decision making. We went to the moon to essentially like prove a challenge, right? We wanted to go, we wanted to do exploration, but there were still so much questions and our technology wasn't quite there. We didn't really know what to make of it. And now that our technology has improved over 50 plus years now we're asking even more questions. And we're like, oh, we should go here, we should go here, we should go here, and so on. What makes decision making? There's still risks, but I think that's the fun part then.
Okay, cool. LinkedIn user, not your real name, I suspect, but permanent base established on the moon, and then transfer station to Mars. This has been talked about a lot. This is the best way to do it, I presume, to get to Mars, not going straight from Earth. You've got this lower gravity regime on the moon. You potentially have all this water, which is great fuel, and oxygen and things like that. Is this still the plan?
It's potentially a plan. There's still plenty of big question marks out there, especially going back to water on the moon. Again, we don't know how abundant this stuff is. We don't know how clean this water may be too. We may need to really up our technology to clean the water, make it usable, and then how do we sustain it as well? So are we kind of looking toward a base camp? Yes. Where that's going to be, no idea. We're still looking at the lunar South Pole, but Artemis isn't tied necessarily to the South Pole, at least Artemis 3 and 4. But going forward with 5 and 6 and so on, doesn't necessarily mean we have to stop at just the South Pole, which is very fun in the future years. So will this be as like a stepping stone? Yes, this is a program called Moon to Mars, or just Google M, the number 2, and then M. So would this be used as almost like refueling and critical supplies? Yes, but also keep in mind that the moon can also really be useful as a test bed to make sure it works in a low gravity environment, a very dusty environment too, before it gets to Mars. Now, are we still looking at pretty long timelines to get to Mars? Yes, but there's still plenty to test bed and learn at the moon when it's much closer, especially if anything happens. Then yes, then we can go forward to Mars.
Yeah. And that's as you say, getting things right on these shorter jaunts out is better. And there's a question from Marino, and yours have a very long name. Talk about worst case scenarios. Thank you. Let everyone read that. Thank you for the question. The sort of plan B, and we, talking about the sort of safety and security. We know, again, from watching movies and reading about Apollo 13, that the things can go wrong. This is going to space is still very, very risky. As we know, it's not just let's just pop up there. So I imagine the safety protocols are as tight, if not tighter, than back in the Apollo days.
Absolutely, yes. So that is another beneficial thing that has changed since Apollo. A lot of our safety restrictions have gotten thankfully tighter. We have much more streamlined timelines as far as technical checks go. Certainly like the wet dress rehearsal that I talked about earlier during this live stream is, we've found a leak. Thankfully, we found it now instead of later. So it's just going to be a lot of testing from then on. So are there plan B's and C's? Absolutely. They're all the way down to plan Z's. I'm pretty sure. So what does that entail, though? It depends upon every step of the stage. It depends on communications as well. Because you figure as they're moving, the Earth is moving as well. So even like the timing of communications can be disrupted. So they're not always going to be talking to Houston. So we need to get everybody else ready who's going to be listening in at the ready if something happens. And then re-entering Earth's atmosphere, yes, we had learned quite a bit through Artemis I. And this is why Artemis I did not have people, is because we wanted to make sure our designs were ready. And so our heat shield was not ready for Artemis I. It was as ready as it was for the time. We have lessons learned, and now we've improved it. So by all means, hopefully everything will go fine. But as Simon said, it's still risky. Space is always going to be risky.
Yeah. This is all going to go well. The seamless mission. What next? I mean, what Apollo, of course, went through up to 17. We got geologists walking around on the moon. There were plans for more Apollos, but then there was a change in direction from NASA. How do you see the Artemis saga contributing to our understanding of the moon?
More rocks.
More rocks.
Bring back more rocks.
Yeah.
No, but think of it this way, is that as we're bringing back rocks and making better decisions as to which rocks to bring back. I mean, by all means, you send up any geologist up there, we want to bring back all the rocks. If anybody out there is, more rocks, absolutely. So even we have to be very, very cautious of okay, we have to be very judicious as to what rocks to bring back with us. But think of it this way, is that the rocks not only tell us about the past, right? So what kind of chemistry is involved in the different radioactive elements in this moon rock, and you can slice it open and look at it through a microscope and see how old all of these different minerals are. That can tell us about how the moon was formed, how old the moon would be in that particular area, maybe something about the volcanism of the moon too. But You could also use the rocks to look forward too. If it has a certain amount of iron and oxygen, there's a very common mineral called ilmenite. It's iron and oxygen. That's mostly the structure of this mineral. And how do you separate that iron and oxygen to have usable oxygen and almost like an ore grade iron for base camp planning, for structural integrity, for maybe maintenance on rovers and tool building for the moon. So using just as simple as iron, but how to use that rock to go forward. And also foundation planning too. If you want to build a base camp, and it's almost like if I asked you to build a house, hey Simon, go build a house, wouldn't your first question be like, where?
Mm-hmm.
And then from that question, you're like, okay, well, is it going to be in the snowy mountains of Alaska, or is it going to be the sandy beaches of North Carolina? Very different solid or not solid grounds there. Is it seismically active like Alaska versus North Carolina? Are you having to deal with, well, the moon may not have sandy beaches or anything though, but every environment is different. And so learning about the rocks of a specific area can really tell us a lot about how to build our base camp foundations.
Yeah, yeah. And these base camps are the base camp for humanity becoming an interplanetary civilization. And that's what SETI is interested in. Not to say what maybe what life forms you'll find on Mars. Probably not on the moon. But that's another tale. That's another story. Thank you, Caitlin, for all this conversation information. What's the best place to follow Artemis, both pre and post launch? Is it NASA? That's
Absolutely. So a lot of it happening right now, if you're really wanting to update a lot of those blogs, is nasa.gov /blogs/Artemis. You would get a lot of the what's happening right now with all the all of the liquid hydrogen happening and the upper stage leaks and everything. So if that's not really your cup of tea to know all the refueling bits there, even just simply NASA Artemis has some wonderful educational resources out there as well. Some really beautiful posters that go into Archer and Avatar instruments as well. So there's a lot of really cool resources, a lot of blogs being consistently updated right now as we're going toward the launch window.
Yeah. So that's great. So more information than you can possibly need, but it's wonderful to have that. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and the questions. We couldn't get to them all, unfortunately. We're probably going to invite you back after this mission goes ahead, and we can talk about it more and what's happening next. And we can just talk about the moon as well. That'll be good too. Thank you, everybody. Just a reminder that the SETI Institute is a non-profit research organization. We do we don't require, we would request donations. It'd be better if we could require, we get more money. But if you pop into SETI.org, our website, give you more information about the SETI Institute's research, science, in planetary science, as well as other areas. And we welcome donations to keep us going. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again very soon. Take care.